Welcome in, everyone. And hello. Good evening. I see Vi here, and I see Core. Who knows who else is lurking or just coming on in? And I see Mushu already on the YouTube side there, too. And Kate. Oh man, everyone is here. I guess that's just what happens when I announce the stream an hour before it happens, rather than like the 30 to 20 minutes I usually do. You're very loyal. It's true. It's been amazing, honestly. You mean you saw it on YouTube? Aw, damn. Well, everyone, thank you for that. Honestly, it means a lot to me. I know I say it all the time, get mushy-gushy every time we start or in the middle of the day, but no, it's seriously fantastic and amazing. And all the art you guys do all the time, goodness gracious, everyone. You're all stellar. So, before we begin reading books proper, some shenanigans were over the weekend. Flirting. I mean, if that's what you want to call it. But, let's see. Dokies. Oh, you're all silly. So yeah. Just as the new year began, or right before? No, it was right before. Like, Christmas was going to happen. It was Christmas Eve. Someone had gotten a hold of my card information, and they used it to make a purchase over on Walmart.com. So that sucked. As soon as that happened, I shut that card down immediately and said, hey, wasn't me. Give the money back, please. And that's still been going on for a while, but then the strangest thing started to happen. Because turns out I started getting those Walmart orders to my house. How they get my information? Listen, data scrapers will find anything from anywhere. Stuff is not safe. They'll flirt back. Oh, I bet. I bet you all would, honestly. But yeah, so that card got destroyed and replaced, so that information is no longer usable. But yeah, stuff began to arrive to my house, and I'm like, I didn't order this. And Walmart knows that card is connected to me. So I guess that's the reason why I'm getting the stuff. But like, got scammed with the work email and had to change everything. That's awful, Mushroom. That's why you scam the scammer, act like you're in the mafia. That's if you get in a call with them. Or an email with them, but no, they just had the card. So, I think the day after Christmas, there was a lone package as I got a text message from Walmart saying, "Hey, your package is coming. Your package has arrived." I'm like, I didn't order anything. In fact, you stole my money, so like, huh? And sure enough, a package comes on inside, and it's a copy of God of War Ragnarok for PlayStation 5. I don't own a PlayStation 5, so it's worthless. And then later, I get another notification from Walmart saying a package is being processed and will make it to me very, very soon. Out of all the things I know, right? Hi, Wampus. The licking. I know, right? They took my card info just to buy a Christmas present, I guess, because they bought God of War Ragnarok and who knows what else totaling over $170. And I'm just like, I literally just paid this, so that's rude. And apparently one of the other things arrived today. Literally something worth just a few dollars. A pocket hug. I'm like, what is this? Who sent me this? Where is this from? Before I found out, oh, Walmart sells these. So the pocket hug itself comes with a note that I thought was sweet. I'm like, who sent me this? That's so nice. Before I realized it was just the person that stole my money. What is a pocket hug? Well, let's go ahead and read that. As the note above it says, "You are amazing and strong and brave and wonderful. Remember that. Here's a little pocket hug just to remind you of just how strong you are. So keep it in your pocket and remember you are a star." So like, wow, what a sweet message. With a little wooden thing. I have it in my hand, sure do. It was mystifying me for hours. But it's just a little wooden tag thing that you can just keep in your pocket. And you know what? Being that it came from a scammer, I don't think not really a scammer, it came from a thief. I know, right? So I don't think I'm gonna have that in my pocket. Maybe I'll gift it to somebody else, but I don't know. I just thought the message was funny because it's super sweet. And I'm like, this was supposed to go to somebody else. Don't steal from people just to give stuff to others. Oh, what a day. And then just before starting stream, I was having a conversation with a friend who's been trying very hard to get into streaming in general. They've had so many ideas, they've been working hard on them, but they just keep holding back. But it's the thought that counts. But anyways, they're very sweet and very fun, and I look forward to their arrival in the VTuber sphere. But the important thing was, after we talked a bit about that, we started talking about Final Fantasy XIV again. As I then started to think about my entire journey through, because it's a wild ride. Not just the story, but like my personal story going through there. I don't know if anyone would be interested in hearing about that, but hey, nostalgia's fun. Your activation phrase. Now you want to know? All right. Story time before books then. So, back in the day, I had decided to try Final Fantasy XIV. When he gets the money, he'll be in the VTuber community. I'll believe that, Kate. But the main reason I had decided to try was because not only am I a huge Final Fantasy nerd, like, I played all of them up until, hi Jam, up until 10, and then we moved, so I couldn't actually get any new Final Fantasies, so I missed out on 11, 12, 13, but when I finally came back to the United States, 14 was around with a free trial. I wasn't really interested though, until there was a streamer friend that I had that started playing it like on and off. Did I see Stumpy? I did. They're a cute little coon. You're almost done with 12 after 900 years? Oh, I believe that. It takes a lot to go through 12. But yeah. The free trial was there, but there wasn't really any jobs that called my interest yet, since this was just a base, a Realm Reborn. You're gonna start 16 soon? Nice. That's exciting, bye. Good ol' Clive. Then I learned that they had recently released the Rogue and Ninja jobs. They probably early ARR? No, it was kind of late into ARR. Like the post patches. So I had given it a try using that streamer's affiliate code. What is my dream? My dream is to become a professional voice actor. Someday. Those pouches get as early AR. You know, that's fair. So I decided to give it a try. And back in the day, you couldn't just get to Ninja. In fact, you still can't. Not only did you have to get Monk to 15 to even unlock the job, for Rogue, you then had to get that up to 30 as well, and at least you had to get Monk up there. So I finally get to unlock Rogue. I'm having a time. Oh yeah, cross-classing. Trying to become one too? You do have an adorable voice, so I could see you fitting in there. Oh, and TP. Oh, baby, TP. What a time. But yeah, I dropped off after the trial, and I did not try it again until... Yeah, starting is hard, Jam. I did not try again until I was again watching that friend, and they were going through the Alexander raids of Heavensward. So I had some catching up to do, but this time when I tried again, I was hooked. I actually had some friends to play with, but I mostly just went through on my own as a lone little rogue, becoming a ninja, learning those mudras. Oh boy, when we get that level 45 BDSM gear. That was a rough time. But finally, level 50 achieved, a Realm Reborn ended, and having to manually unlock the Crystal Tower raids. And going through the Bahamut tiers. I got sped through those. That was nice. Finally, catching up to Heavensward and story and everything. And I was caught up ever since. Listen, if you were a melee, you had to wear the BDSM gear. It was unfortunate, but very, very true. Oh man, it was a time. You're a Dragoon main? I'm so sorry. So sorry. It's a requirement? Mm-hmm. Oh man. I didn't really start, like, savage raiding, though, until Stormblood. Ever thought you'd hear those words from me? You know your way around a pole arm. Oh, I believe it. But I had learned from some of the best ninjas in the community at the time, and you know, I taught lots of people the ways of ninja because I still have those moves memorized. That is built into my body and soul. Like, I can take a break for months on end, get back into ninja, I still got it. Stumpy, I choose you. Scary through Savage Race never touched one. I mean, if streaming becomes a viable thing, that I don't have to work a full-time job anymore, that I can just be on the computer, then I'll Savage Raid again. But just on its own, I do not have the heart and soul to go back into them. I do love Stumpy. Man. But yeah, pretty much, we gotta make me rich. Appreciate that. What are we doing today? We are going to be reading, but people wanted to hear Final Fantasy story first. You need to get rich first. Same. Big same. Let's see. So I was a ninja all throughout, you know, first expansions, and then Shadowbringer happens, and I decide I want to make a change. And, you know, healer queues were always fast. Thank you, Jam Jam. So I made the mistake of learning how to heal during one of the hardest introductions to a dungeon I had ever experienced. As a scholar. Because I'm like, oh, I'll just buy a level boost. I'll skip on through. I'll figure it out on the fly. I mean, did I? Yeah. Did it suck? Oh, yeah. Oh, boy. But from there, lots of drama happened, and I stopped playing for a while before some other friends picked me up, some newer ones, and I have been with that group, that static, as my friends ever since. Not that there hasn't been, you know, other drama that's happened around them, but like, they are my safe space. We still hang out to this day, even when we're not playing 14. Just, they are my friends, and I love them. Gotta say though, when Endwalker happened, yeah, when Endwalker happened, I'm not going to say I rushed, but I was very, very fortunate because I remembered, oh no need for spoilers, no worries, I'm not going to spoil anything. Pretty much, because I was very lucky and was able to get past the enormous queues that happens at the beginning of every expansion, and I was left alone to just play for 3 days straight, I was able to make it there and beat the game pretty much by myself. And it's funny going back to seeing other like big streamers doing that now. And like they always have big crowds of people around them cheering them on. In 3 days, yeah, that's how long it takes to beat an expansion fully. Same thing happened with Dawn Trail. And Shadowbringers would have been 3 days. Maybe a bit longer. And then I just look back to me being a trailblazer, leading the way for my companions. It may have been by myself, but for those we have lost, for those we can yet save, I'll lead the way. You're about to play Reunion, you have no idea what comes before that or 7 Remake. Please don't, Mushroom. If anything, please at least play the remake first. Did I make you cry? Ah. Yeah, no, like, you will be so completely confused, Mushroom. And, like, I'm gonna play Reunion soon. You played Remake? Oh, okay. Oh, thank goodness. You scared me. You scared me. I mean, you can cry on a gentle night, or there's nothing wrong with that. Anyways, Tifa has your heart, as she should. As she should. Requesting a Final Fantasy Night NEFF? Oh, we love Cloud. But you hate crying? Okay. That's fair. But yeah, I'm down to play any Final Fantasies. It's funny because I was either going to play Born of Bread for my RPG or Final Fantasy VII. Classic 7. In fact, my evil plan was, Jam Jam, I do love you, okay? Calm down. Not in the way you want, but I love all you guys. You're wonderful. You're going back to your grave. So silly. Exactly. But yeah, my evil plan for Final Fantasy VII was on my other channel that you don't know about. I was gonna play through the entirety of Final Fantasy VII, but all the male voices were gonna be voiced by Kermit. Secret channel? Nah, that's the main channel. Technically, this is the secret channel. Has it taken over as the main channel? Yeah. But this is the secret identity. Yeah, it would have been funny. Oh, if only you knew. Here lies the body of someone special. Her name is Jam Jam, and she was precious to us, giving us cookies and various amounts of wildlife. The sweetest person we ever knew. May she rest in peace. Amen. Now you're all gonna die from curiosity. You all want it. You all need it. No, things are better here. Someday. Oh, man. And you guys are going to see all the clips and stuff, too. We can't have that. There's some embarrassing stuff on there. Oh, someday. Someday, maybe, the streams may merge. But for now, I'm Cassian. Cassian Radley. You're singing outside and the cat canes you? That's wonderful. You tried. It's true, you did try. However, you named him Peanut Butter? That's a lovely cat name. He's gatekeeping, that's crazy. Listen, We don't promote other people's channels on stream unless I do it. So I'm not gonna promote. That's the flimsiest excuse I could come up with. I'm sorry. Oh. I love you guys. You're wonderful. Maybe I'll share some clips later. I'll hide the username, of course, but maybe I'll share some clips later. I'm also wonderful. Well, thank you, Kate. You can find it. We'll see. We'll see. Share them now? No. Because I've dillied and I've dallied for quite enough time. So much so that I've yapped for nearly half an hour. Goodness gracious. But now, the glass is on, the pipe is out. Let's settle in, everyone. Let's just go ahead and relax, because it's time to read some stories. What is that licking? You hate cliffhangers? Well, good, if we're continuing from one. Because we will start off with the Pawn of Prophecy, Part 2, Shrek. Chapter 12. In the gray first light of early morning, they rode through the quiet streets of Sendar to the harbor and their waiting ship. The finery of the evening before had been put aside, and they had all resumed their customary clothes. Are we maybe getting another anime night soon? Soon. Not tonight, but soon. Even King Fulrak and the Earl of Selene had donned plain garb, and now resembled nothing quite so much as two moderately prosperous Sendars on a business trip. Shrek. Which is close to Shrek, you're not wrong. Queen Layla, who was not to go with them, rode beside her husband, talking earnestly to him, with an expression on her face that seemed almost to hover on the verge of tears. The party was accompanied by soldiers cloaked against the raw, chill wind off the sea. At the foot of the street, which led down from the palace to the harbor, the stone wharves of Sendar jutted out into the choppy water, and there, rocking and straining against the hawsers which held her, was their ship. She was a lean vessel, narrow of beam and high-prowed, with a kind of wolfish appearance that did little to quiet Garen's nervousness about his first sea voyage. Peekaboo. I see you. Lounging about on her deck were a number of savage-looking sailors, bearded and garbed in shaggy garments made of fur. With the exception of Barak, these were the first Shreks Garion had ever seen, and his first impression was that they would probably prove to be totally unreliable. Barak! A burly man halfway up the mast shouted, and dropped hand over hand down a steeply slanted rope to the deck, and then jumped across to the wharf. Reldick! Barak roared in response, swung down from his horse, and clasped the evil-looking sailor in a bear hug. Of course, come, we shall take over the under or the heavens. That's a fun quote. It would seem that our Lord Barak is acquainted with our captain, the Earl of Selene observed. That's disquieting, Silk said wryly. I was hoping for a sober, sensible captain of middle years and a conservative disposition. I'm not fond of ships and sea travel to begin with. I'm told that Captain Greldick is one of the finest seamen in all of Cherek, the Earl assured him. My lord, Silk said with a pained look, Cherek definitions can be deceptive. Sourly, he watched Barak and Greldick toasting their reunion with tankards of ale that had been passed down to them from the ship by a grinning sailor. Queen Layla had dismounted, and she embraced Aunt Pole. Please watch out for my poor husband, Pole, she said with a little laugh that quivered a bit. Don't let those Alorn bullies goad him into doing anything foolish. Of course, Layla, Aunt Pole said comfortingly. Now, Layla, King Fulrak said in an embarrassed voice, I'll be all right. I'm a grown man after all. The plump little queen wiped her eyes. I want you to promise to wear warm clothes, she said, and not to sit up all night drinking with Anheg. We're on serious business, Layla, the king said. There won't be time for any of that. I know Anheg too well, the queen sniffed. She turned to Mr. Wolf, stood on her tiptoes, and kissed his bearded cheek. Dear Belgarath, she said, when this is over, promise that you and Pole will come back for a long visit. I promise, Layla, Mr. Wolf said gravely. The tide's turning, Lord King, Greldick said, and my ship's growing restless. Oh dear, the queen said. She put her arms around the king's neck and buried her face in his shoulder. Now, Fulrak said awkwardly. If you don't go now, I'm going to cry right here in public, she said, pushing him away. The stones of the wharf were slippery, and the slim Cherek ship bobbed and rolled in the chop. The narrow plank they had to cross heaved and swayed dangerously, but they all managed to board without accident. The sailors slipped the hawsers and took their places at the oars. The lean vessel leaped away from the wharf and moved swiftly into the harbor past the stout and bulky merchantmen anchored nearby. Queen Layla stood forlornly on the wharf, surrounded by tall soldiers. She waved a few times and then stood watching, her chin lifted bravely. Captain Greldick took his place at the tiller with Barak by his side and signaled to a squat, muscular warrior crouched nearby. That gives off younger sibling energy. Go away, I'm gonna cry in public. Too true. Or, seeing a loved one go, going to the airport, and maybe a parent has come on by just to say goodbye. They love you dearly and hate to see you go. Tears in their eyes, though. They know you have to. It's your first trip, after all. So, you tell them you'll be safe, and they'll trust you. But it doesn't help the pain any less. But that makes the reunion all the sweeter. I just came up with that on the fly. The squat man nodded and pulled a ragged square of sailcloth off a high-top drum. He began a slow beat, and the oarsmen immediately took up the rhythm. The ship searched ahead and made for the open sea. Once they were beyond the protection of the harbor, The swells grew so ponderous that the ship no longer rocked, but ran instead down the back of each wave and up the face of the next, the long oars, dipping to the rhythm of the sullen drum, left little swirls on the surface of the waves. Can I do bibbidi-boppidi-boo on you and makeup? I don't know about that, young. Don't know if I have the skills to do so. Sounds magical, though. The sea was lead-gray beneath the wintry sky, and the low, snow-covered coastline of Cindaria slid by on their right, bleak and desolate looking, like Cinderella. Bibbidi, boppity, boo. And now, you're gorgeous. Garion spent most of the day shivering in a sheltered spot near the high prow, moodily staring out at the sea. The shards and shambles into which his life had fallen the night before lay in ruins around him. The idea that Wolf was Belgarath and Aunt Pol was Polgara was, of course, an absurdity. He was convinced, however, that a part of the whole thing at least was true. She might not be Polgara, but she was almost certainly not his aunt. Oh my! Mofuku, thank you for the raid. Wow, there's 55 of you. Welcome in. Let's see, let's go ahead and do a shout out. What a lovely moth raid. Oh hey, thank you for following the one gam. Ah, looks like Stream Elements isn't working. Unfortunate. That's right. We've got many moths and butterflies coming in. So, hello everyone. Welcome in. I'm Cassian Radley. You've caught me in the middle of reading a book. Specifically, The Pawn of Prophecy, Chapter 12. So, Mofuku, what were you up to? Are you also doing ASMR tonight? And how's everyone else? Hope you're all having a wonderful night. If you like the vibes, then feel free to stay and relax. We'll keep the night going for a while. You also did ASMR? That's wonderful. Glad to hear. Well, I hope you enjoy your stay and, kick back, relax, and have a wonderful rest of your night. Greetings from Iceland. Wow, that's a good distance away. Hello, hello. But yeah, I'm relatively new to ASMR as a whole. While I'm usually good at reading and having fun like this, and occasionally play games, I'm still learning the real basics of getting the triggers down right. So, hopefully you all bear with me. Moved from Japan overnight? Dang. That's pretty huge. So, to catch you up to speed, in this book, let's see, our protagonist, Garion, lived a peaceful life with his Aunt Polgara, and sometimes the storyteller Mr. Wolf would come on by to the little farmstead. One day, though, it turns out something had been stolen, and now Garion has been whisked away on a journey to go and try to claim that thing back. In a world full of magic and sorcerers, one that he's not really prepared for, but is learning along the way with an interesting cast of characters. I'm on your laptop now? Nice. Wampus sent you. Well, welcome, Colty. Alright. Wampus, you shouted me out while you're... well. Man, Wampus sure is lovely, aren't they? You need eeps? Well, I guess this is probably a good place for it. Yeah. Hopefully the sound of the voice, the river, and the book will hopefully get you there to Sleepland. And thank you for following, Colty. Hey! My follower thingy's working. Oh, also I missed out on a bit of the YouTube side, so... Galaxy Mushroom, hope you rest well. See you next time. And yeah, lots of people. I like the noise it makes, nice. And M. Young really wants to be Cinderella. Alright, everyone. Yeah, go ahead and relax, Colty. And again, welcome in, everybody. Let's go ahead and get right back to the story. Oh, that's funny, actually. I should probably be able to listen to that too, actually. Oh man, we love Scuff. Properties. That's not what I'm looking for. Scuff makes it authentic. That's true. It's a good thing. Too true. I would, however, Shock the Cleaner Shrimp ASMR. That one just sounds kind of funny. I guess I'll try to fix that later. For now, though. Love the noise. Well, I'm glad everyone approves. Alright. The idea that Wolf was Belgarath and Antpol was Polgara was, of course, an absurdity. He was convinced, however, that a part of the whole thing at least was true. She might not be Polgara, but she was almost certainly not his aunt. He avoided looking at her as much as possible and did not speak to anyone. They slept that night in cramped quarters beneath the stern deck of the ship. Mr. Wolf sat talking for a long time with Volrak and the Earl of Selene. Garion covertly watched the old man, whose silvery hair and short-cropped beard seemed almost to glow in the light from a swinging oil lamp hanging from one of the low beams. He still looked the same as always, and Garion finally turned over and went to sleep. The next day, they rounded the Hook of Sandaria and beat northeasterly with a good following wind. The sails were raised, and the oarsmen were able to rest. Garion continued to wrestle with his problem. On the third day, out the weather turned stormy, and bitterly cold. The rigging crackled with ice, and sleet hissed into the sea around them. If this doesn't break, it'll be a rough passage through the bore, Barak said, frowning into the sleet. The what? Dernick asked apprehensively. Dernick was not at all comfortable on the ship. He was just recovering from a bout of seasickness, and he was obviously a bit edgy. The Cherek Bore, Barak explained. It's a passage about a league wide between the northern tip of Sindaria and the southern end of the Cherek Peninsula. Riptides, whirlpools, that sort of thing. Don't be alarmed, Dernick. This is a good ship, and Greldick knows the secret of navigating the bore. It may be a bit rough, but we'll be perfectly safe. Unless we're unlucky, of course. That's a cheery thing to say, Silk observed dryly from nearby. I've been trying for 3 days not to think about the bore. Is it really that bad? Dernick asked in a sinking voice. I make a special point of not going through it sober, Silk told him. Barak laughed. You ought to be thankful for the bore, Silk, he said. It keeps the Empire out of the Gulf of Cherek. All of Drasnia would be a Tolnedran province if it wasn't there. I admire it politically, Silk said, but personally, I'd be much happier if I never had to look at it again. On the following day, they anchored near the rocky coast of northern Sindaria and waited for the tide to turn. In time, it slackened and reversed, and the waters from the Sea of the Winds mounted and plunged through the bore to raise the level of the Gulf of Cherek. Find something solid to hold on to, Garion, Barak advised as Greldick ordered the anchor raised. With this following wind, the passage could be interesting. He strode along the narrow deck, his teeth gleaming in a broad grin. It was foolish. Garion knew that, even as he stood up and began to follow the red-bearded man toward the prow. But 4 days of solitary brooding over a problem that refused to yield to any kind of logic made him feel almost belligerently reckless. He set his teeth together and took hold of a rusted iron ring embedded in the prow. Barak laughed and clapped him a stunning blow on the shoulder. Good boy, he said approvingly. We'll stand together and look the bore right down the throat. Garion decided not to answer that. With wind and tide behind her, Greldick's ship literally flew through the passage, yawing and shuddering as she was seized by the violent riptides. Icy spray stung their faces, and Garion, half blinded by it, did not see the enormous whirlpool in the center of the bore until they were almost upon it. He seemed to hear a vast roar and cleared his eyes just in time to see it yawning in front of him. What's that? He yelled over the noise. The great maelstrom, Barak shouted. Hold on. The maelstrom was fully as large as the village of Upper Gralt and descended horribly down into a seething, mist-filled pit unimaginably far below. Some of these characters sound simple. Oh, you have no idea. And descended horribly down into a seething, mist-filled pit unimaginably far below. Incredibly, instead of guiding his vessel away from the vortex, Greldick steered directly at it. "What's he doing?" Carrion screamed. "It's the secret of passing through the bore," Barak roared. "We circle the maelstrom twice to gain more speed. If the ship doesn't break up, she comes out like a rock from a sling, and we pass through the riptides beyond the maelstrom before they can slow us down and drag us back." "If the ship doesn't what?" "Sometimes. A ship is torn apart in the maelstrom," Barak said. "Don't worry, boy. It doesn't happen very often, and Greldic ships seem stout enough." "Hi, Luxie. Long time no see." "Konbanwa." "Good evening to you, too. Hope you've been well." The ship's prow dipped hideously into the outer edges of the maelstrom, and then raced twice around the huge whirlpool, with the oarsmen frantically bending their backs to the frenzied beat of the drum. The wind tore at Garion's face, and he clung to his iron ring, keeping his eyes averted from the seething maw gaping below. And then they broke free and shot like a whistling stone through the churning water beyond the maelstrom. The wind of their passage howled in the rigging, and Garion felt half suffocated by its force. Gradually, the ship slowed in the swirling eddies, but the speed they had gained from the maelstrom carried them on to calm water in a partially sheltered cove on the Sindarian side. Barak was laughing gleefully and mopping spray from his beard. "Well, lad," he said, "what do you think of the bore?" Garion didn't trust himself to answer, and concentrated on trying to pry his numb fingers from the iron ring. A familiar voice rang out from the stern. "Garion." "Now you've gone and got me in trouble," Garion said resentfully, ignoring the fact that standing in the prow had been his own idea. Aunt Pole spoke scathingly to Barak about his irresponsibility, and then turned her attention to Garion. "Well," she said, "I'm waiting. Would you like to explain?" "It wasn't Barak's fault," Garion said. "It was my own idea. There's no point in their both being in trouble after all." "I see," she said. "And what was behind that?" The confusion and doubt which had been troubling him made him reckless. "I felt like it," he said half defiantly. For the first time in his life, he felt on the verge of open rebellion. "You what?" "I felt like it," he repeated. What difference does it make why I did it? You're going to punish me anyway." Aunt Pole stiffened, and her eyes blazed. Mr. Wolf, who was sitting nearby, chuckled. "What's so funny?" she snapped. "Why don't you let me handle this, Pole?" the old man suggested. "I can deal with it," she said. "But not well, Pole," he said. "Not well at all. Your temper's too quick, and your tongue's too sharp. He's not a child anymore. He's not a man yet, but he's not a child either. This problem needs to be dealt with in a special way. I'll take care of it." He stood up. I insist, Pole." "You what?" "I insist." His eyes hardened. "Very well," she said in an icy voice, turned, and walked away. "Sit down, Garion," the old man said. "Why is she so mean?" Garion blurted. "She isn't," Mr. Wolf said. "She's angry because you frightened her. Nobody likes to be frightened." I'm sorry, Arian mumbled, ashamed of himself. Don't apologize to me, Wolf said. I wasn't frightened. He looked for a moment at Garion, his eyes penetrating. What's the problem? He asked. They call you Belgarath, Garion said as if that explained it all. And they call her Polgara. So? It's just not possible. Didn't we have this conversation before, a long time ago? Are you Belgarath? Garion demanded bluntly. Some people call me that. What difference does it make? I'm sorry, Garion said. I just don't believe it. All right, Wolf shrugged. You don't have to if you don't want to. What's that got to do with your being impolite to your aunt? It's just, Garion faltered. Well, desperately, he wanted to ask Mr. Wolf that ultimate, fatal question, but despite his certainty that there was no kinship between himself and Aunt Pole, he could not bear the thought of having it finally and irrevocably confirmed. You're confused, Mr. Wolf said. Is that it? Nothing seems to be like it ought to be, and you're angry with your aunt because it seems like it has to be her fault. You make it sound awfully childish, Garion said, flushing slightly. Isn't it? Garion flushed even more. It's your own problem, Garion, Mr. Wolf said. Do you really think it's proper to make others unhappy because of it? No, Garion admitted in a scarcely audible voice. Your aunt and I are who we are, Wolf said quietly. People have made up a lot of nonsense about us, but that doesn't really matter. There are things that have to be done, and we're the ones who have to do them. That's what matters. Don't make things more difficult for your aunt just because the world isn't exactly to your liking. That's not only childish, it's ill-mannered, and you're a better boy than that. Now, I really think you owe her an apology, don't you? I suppose so, Garion said. I'm glad we had this chance to talk, the old man said. But I wouldn't wait too long before making up with her. You wouldn't believe how long she can stay angry. He grinned suddenly. She's been angry with me for as long as I can remember, and that's so long that I don't even like to think about it. I'll do it right now, Garion said. Good, Wolf approved. Garion stood up and walked purposefully to where Aunt Pole stood staring out at the swirling currents of the Chirek Boar. Aunt Pole, he said. Yes, dear? I'm sorry. I was wrong. She turned and looked at him gravely. Yes, she said. You were. I won't do it again. She laughed then, a low, warm laugh, and ran her fingers through his tangled hair. Don't make promises you can't keep, dear, she said, and she embraced him, and everything was all right again. After the fury of the tide through the Chirek Boar had abated, they sailed north along the snow-muffled east coast of the Chirek Peninsula toward the ancient city, which was the ancestral home of all the Lorns, Algars and Drasnians, as well as Chirek and Riven. The wind was chill, and the skies threatening, but the remainder of that voyage was uneventful. Wish someone could do that to you. You and me both, Kate. You and me both. After 3 more days, their ship entered the harbor at Valalorn, and tied up at one of the ice-shrouded wharves. Valalorn was unlike any Sindarian city. Its walls and buildings were so incredibly ancient that they seemed more like natural rock formations than the construction of human hands. The narrow, crooked streets were clogged with snow, and the mountains behind the city loomed high and white against the dark sky. Several horse-drawn sleighs awaited them at the wharf, with savage-looking drivers and shaggy horses stamping impatiently in the packed snow. There were fur robes in the sleighs, and Garion drew one of them about him as he waited for Barak to conclude his farewells to Greldic and the sailors. "Let's go," Barak told the driver as he climbed to the sleigh. "See if you can't catch up with the others." "If you hadn't talked for so long, they wouldn't be so far ahead, Lord Barak," the driver said sourly. "That's probably true," Barak agreed. The driver grunted, touched his horses with his whip, and the sleigh started up the street where the others had already disappeared. Fur-clad Shrek warriors swaggered up and down the narrow streets, and many of them bellowed greetings to Barak as the sleigh passed. At one corner, their driver was forced to halt while two burly men, stripped to the waist in the biting cold, wrestled savagely in the snow in the center of the street to the encouraging shouts of a crowd of onlookers. "A common pastime," Barak told Garion. "Winter's a tedious time in Valalorn." "Is that the palace ahead?" Garion asked. Barak shook his head. "The Temple of Belar," he said. "Some men say that the bear god resides there in spirit. I've never seen him myself, though, so I can't say for sure." Then the wrestlers rolled out of the way, and they continued. On the steps of the temple, an ancient woman wrapped in ragged woolen robes stood with a long staff clutched in one bony hand and her stringy hair wild about her face. "Hail, Lord Barak," she called in a cracked voice as they passed. "Thy doom still awaits thee." "Stop the sleigh," Barak growled at the driver, and he threw off his fur robe and jumped to the ground. "Marty," he thundered at the old woman, "you've been forbidden to loiter here. If I tell Anheg that you've disobeyed him, he'll have the priests of the temple burn you for a witch." The old woman cackled at him, and Garion noted with a shudder that her eyes were milk-white blankness. "The fire will not touch old Marty," she laughed shrilly. "That is not the doom which awaits her." "Enough of dooms," Barak said. "Get away from the temple." "Marty sees what she sees," the old woman said. "The mark of thy doom is still upon thee, great Lord Barak. When it comes to thee, thou shalt remember the words of old Marty." And then she seemed to look at the sleigh where Garion sat, though her milky eyes were obviously blind. Her expression suddenly changed from malicious glee to one strangely awestruck. "Hail, greatest of lords," she crooned, bowing deeply. "When thou comest into thine inheritance, remember that it was old Marty who first greeted thee." Barak started toward her with a roar, but she scurried away, her staff tapping on the stone steps. "What did she mean?" Garion asked when Barak returned to the sleigh. "She's a crazy woman," Barak replied, his face pale with anger. "She's always lurking around the temple, begging and frightening gullible housewives with her gibberish. If Anheg had any sense, he'd have her driven out of the city or burned years ago. He climbed back into the sleigh. "Let's go," he growled at the driver. Arian looked back over his shoulder as they sped away, but the old blind woman was nowhere in sight. And that is the end of Chapter 12. Man, that sure was eventful, wasn't it? But with this chapter completed, your favorite's the old lady, we will go ahead and move on to a different book. We can either go to the Odyssey or we can continue with the light novel. Vampire cooking in another world with my absurd skill. Which one would you prefer? I will go with the first one I see. But already the tensions build as weird prophetic nonsense begins to happen in the Pawn of Prophecy, which makes sense. You have no opinion? Very fair, Vi. Here comes Kate with the clutch. Which one are you gonna pick, Kate? Which one will you pick? I'm waiting. We love pressure, don't we? Now it's gonna be the Odyssey. Very well. As we start with Book 5, Calypso, Ulysses reaches Scheria on a raft. And now, as dawn rose from her couch beside Tithonus, harbinger of light alike to mortals and immortals, the gods met in council, and with them Jove, the lord of thunder who was their king. Thereon Minerva began to tell them of the many sufferings of Ulysses, for she pitied him away there in the house of the nymph Calypso. "Father Jove," said she, "and all you other gods that live in everlasting bliss, I hope there may never be such a thing as a kind and well-disposed ruler any more, nor one who will govern equitably." We're reading the Odyssey, Jam Jam. "I hope they will be all henceforth cruel and unjust, for there is not one of his subjects but has forgotten Ulysses, who ruled them as though he were their father. There he is, lying in great pain, an island where dwells the nymph Calypso, who will not let him go, and he cannot get back to his own country, for he can find neither ships nor sailors to take him over the sea. Furthermore, wicked people are now trying to murder his only son, Telemachus, who is coming home from Pylos and Lacedaemon, where he has been to see if he can get news of his father." "What, my dear, are you talking about?" replied her father. "Did you not send him there yourself because you thought it would help Ulysses to get home and punish the suitors? Besides, you are perfectly able to protect Telemachus and to see him safely home again, while the suitors have come scurrying back without having killed him. When he had thus spoken, he said to his son Mercury, Mercury, you are our messenger. Go, therefore, and tell Calypso we have decreed that poor Ulysses is to return home. He is to be conveyed neither by gods nor men, but after a perilous voyage of 20 days upon a raft, he is to reach fertile Syria, the land of the Phaeacians, who are near of kin to the gods, and will honor him as though he were one of ourselves. You're right, Core. We sure were raided by a raid of 55 by Mofuku. Another ASMR streamer. We'll have to check them out later. POV, you figure out that Epic is the kid-friendly version of the Odyssey. You are correct. Beautifully sung, wonderfully animated. Your model is cute? Ooh, that's exciting. I'll definitely have to check them out later and thank them again. We will send him in a ship to his own country, and will give him more bronze and gold and raiments than he would have brought back from Troy, if he had had all his prize money and got home without disaster. This is how we have settled that he shall return to his country and his friends. Thus he spoke, and Mercury, guide and guardian, slayer of Argus, did as he was told. Forthwith he bound on his glittering golden sandals, with which he could fly like the wind over land and sea. He took the wand with which he seals men's eyes in sleep or wakes them just as he pleases, and flew holding it in his hand over Pieria. Then he swooped down through the firmament till he reached the level of the sea, whose waves he skimmed like a cormorant that flies fishing every hole and corner of the ocean and drenching its thick plumage in the spray. Is that where the Pokemon Cramorant comes from? That makes sense. He flew and flew over many a weary wave, but when at last he got to the island, which was his journey's end, he left the sea and went on by land till he came to the cave where the nymph Calypso lived. He found her at home. There was a large fire burning on the hearth, and one could smell from far the fragrant reek of burning cedar and sandalwood. As for herself, she was busy at her loom, shooting her golden shuttle through the warp and singing beautifully. Round her cave there was a thick wood of alder, poplar, and sweet-smelling cypress trees, wherein all kinds of great birds had built their nests, owls, hawks, and chattering sea crows that occupy their business in the waters. A vine loaded with grapes was trained and grew luxuriantly about the mouth of the cave, and there were also 4 running rills of water in channels cut pretty close together and turned hither and thither so as to irrigate the beds of violets and luscious herbage over which they flowed. Even a god could not help being charmed with such a lovely spot, so Mercury stood still and looked at it. But when he had admired it sufficiently, he went inside the cave. Yes, Cora? It's snowing outside. Wow. That's pretty amazing. As a desert dweller, snow itself is very, very rare. But the few times we had it have been very, very precious. And dangerous. You can't trust desert people to drive in the snow. When something rare happens, oh, it goes all to pieces. Honestly, it reminds me of a time before. Finally snowed where you are too? Nice. Finally not rain? That's always good. It looks so beautiful. That's wonderful. Make sure you capture the moment. Are we distracted right now? We just finished a paragraph, so we have a little bit of time. Where's my reference sheet? Well, if you go to the Discord, you'll have to scroll up a bit in the art channel. Gonna eat the snow, I don't recommend that. It may be fresh, but the pollution that has been tainting our world is unfortunately in the clouds, so please be careful. Remember eating snow? Yeah, I know I did a long while ago. When you were little. Calypso knew him at once, for the gods all know each other, no matter how far they live from one another. But Ulysses was not within. He was on the seashore as usual, looking out upon the barren ocean with tears in his eyes, groaning and breaking his heart in sorrow. Calypso gave Mercury a seat and said, "Why have you come to see me, Mercury? Honored and ever welcome, for you do not visit me often. Say what you want. I will do it for you at once if I can, and if it can be done at all. But come inside and let me set refreshment before you." As she spoke, she drew a table loaded with ambrosia beside him and mixed him some red nectar. So Mercury ate and drank till he had had enough, and then said, "We are speaking god and goddess to one another, and you ask me why I have come here, and I will tell you truly as you would have me do. Jove sent me. It was no doing of mine. Who could possibly want to come all this way over the sea, where there are no cities full of people to offer me sacrifices or choice hecatombs? Nevertheless, I had to come, for none of us other gods can cross Jove, nor transgress his orders. He says that you have here the most ill-starred of all those who fought 9 years before the city of King Priam and sailed home in the 10th year after having sacked it. On their way home, they sinned against Minerva, who raised both wind and waves against them, so that all his brave companions perished, and he alone was carried hither by wind and tide. Jove says that you are to let this man go at once, for it is decreed that he shall not perish here, far from his own people, but shall return to his house and country to see his friends again." Calypso trembled with rage when she heard this. "You gods," she exclaimed, "ought to be ashamed of yourselves. You are always jealous and hate seeing a goddess take a fancy to a mortal man and live with him in open matrimony. So when rosy-fingered Dawn made love to Orion, You precious gods were all of you furious till Diana went and killed him in Ortygia. So again when Ceres fell in love with Iasion and yielded to him in a thrice-plowed fallow field, Jove came to hear of it before so very long and killed Iasion. Iasion? Man, I wish Cassandra was here with his thunderbolts. And now you are angry with me too, because I have a man here. I found the poor creature sitting all alone astride of a keel, for Jove had struck his ship with lightning and sunk it in mid-ocean, so that all his crew were drowned, while he himself was driven by wind and waves onto my island. I got fond of him and cherished him, and had set my heart on making him immortal, so that he should never grow old all of his days. Still, I cannot cross Jove, nor bring his counsels to nothing. Therefore, if he insists upon it, let the man go beyond the seas again. But I cannot send him anywhere myself, for I have neither ships nor men who can take him. Nevertheless, I will readily give him such advice in all good faith as will be likely to bring him safely to his own country. And send him away, said Mercury, or Jove will be angry with you and punish you. On this, he took his leave, and Calypso went out to look for Ulysses, for she had heard Jove's message. She found him sitting upon the beach, with his eyes ever filled with tears, and dying of sheer homesickness, for he had got tired of Calypso, and though he was forced to sleep with her in the cave by night, it was she, not he, that would have it so. You'd fight Zeus? That's pretty brave of you, Kate. As for the daytime, he spent it on the rocks and on the seashore, weeping, crying aloud for his despair, and always looking out upon the sea. Calypso then went close up to him and said, good luck. My poor fellow, you shall not stay here grieving and fretting your life out any longer. I am going to send you away of my own free will. So go, cut some beams of wood, and make yourself a large raft with an upper deck, that it may carry you safely over the sea. I will put bread, wine, and water on board to save you from starving. Hera would probably help you, or tell you to stop. Both are plausible. I will also give you clothes, and will send you a fair wind to take you home, if the gods in heaven so will it, for they know more about these things, and can settle it better than I can. You eat Cheerios? Thank you for following, and welcome in. Hope you're having a pleasant night. Ulysses shuddered as he heard her. It sure does. I finally fixed it. Now, goddess, he answered, there is something behind all this. You cannot be really meaning to help me home when you bid me do such a dreadful thing as put to sea on a raft. Not even a well-found ship with a fair wind could venture on such a distant voyage. Nothing that you can say or do shall make me go on board a raft unless you first solemnly swear that you mean me no mischief. Calypso smiled at this and caressed him with her hand. You know a great deal, said she, but you are quite wrong here. A heaven above earth. May heaven above and earth below be my witness. And with the waters of the river Styx. And this is the most solemn oath which a blessed God can take, that I mean you no sort of harm, and am only advising you to do exactly what I should do myself in your place. I am dealing with you quite straightforwardly. My heart is not made of iron, and I am very sorry for you. We're almost to 100, that's true. We are almost there. When she had thus spoken, she led the way rapidly before him, and Ulysses followed in her steps. So the pair, goddess and man, went on and on, till they came to Calypso's cave, where Ulysses took the seat that Mercury had just left. Calypso set meat and drink before him of the food that mortals eat, but her maids brought ambrosia and nectar for herself, and they laid their hands on the good things that were before them. When they had satisfied themselves with meat and drink, Calypso spoke, saying, Ulysses, noble son of Laertes, so you would start home to your own land at once. Good luck go with you, but if you could only know how much suffering is in store for you before you get back to your own country, you would stay where you are, keep house along with me, and let me make you immortal, no matter how anxious you may be to see this wife of yours, of whom you are thinking all the time, day after day. You like Cheerios for real, for real? Nice. Do you have a favorite kind of Cheerio? I like Honey Nut Cheerios myself, but the apple cinnamon ones are pretty great. Or the cluster ones. Honey Nut? Oh yeah. Best kind. Can't go wrong. Yet, I flatter myself that I am no whit less tall or well-looking than she is, for it is not to be unexpected that a mortal woman should compare in beauty with an immortal. Goddess, replied Ulysses, do not be angry with me about this. I am quite aware that my wife Penelope is nothing like so tall or so beautiful as yourself. She is only a woman, whereas you are an immortal. ALS, very nice. Thank you for following. It's nice to see the notifications working too. Stocks right now are skyrocketing. We love Honey Nut Cheerio stocks. I told you it would be in the corner. Nevertheless, I want to get home and can think of nothing else. If some god wrecks me when I am on the sea, I will bear it and make the best of it. I have had infinite trouble both by land and sea already, so let this go with the rest. Presently, the sun set and it became dark, whereon the pair retired into the inner part of the cave and went to bed. When the child of morning, rosy-fingered Dawn appeared, Ulysses put on his shirt and cloak, while the goddess wore a dress of a light gossamer fabric, very fine and graceful, with a beautiful golden girdle about her waist and a veil to cover her head. She at once set herself to think how she could speed Ulysses on his way. So she gave him a great bronze axe that suited his hands. It was sharpened on both sides and had a beautiful olive wood handle fitted firmly onto it. She also gave him a sharp adze and then led the way to the far end of the island where the largest tree grew. Alder, poplar, and pine that reached the sky, very dry and well seasoned, so as to sail light for him in the water. Then, when she had shown him where the best trees grew, Calypso went home, leaving him to cut them, which he soon finished doing. He cut down 20 trees in all, and adds them smooth, squaring them by rule in good workmanlike fashion. Meanwhile, Calypso came back with some augers, so he bored holes with them and fitted the timbers together with bolts and rivets. He made the raft as broad as a skilled shipwright makes the beam of a large vessel, and he fixed a deck on top of the ribs and ran a gunwale all around it. He also made a mast with a yard arm and a rudder to steer with. He fenced the raft all around with wicker hurdles as a protection against the waves, and then he threw on a quantity of wood. By and by, Calypso brought him some linen to make the sails, and he made these too, excellently, making them fast with braces and sheets. Last of all, with the help of levers, he drew the raft down into the water. In 4 days, he had completed the whole work, and on the 5th, Calypso sent him from the island after washing him and giving him some clean clothes. She gave him a goatskin full of black wine and another larger one of water. She also gave him a wallet full of provisions and found him in much good meat. Moreover, she made the wind fair and warm for him, and gladly did Ulysses spread his sail before it, while he sat and guided the raft skillfully by means of the rudder. He never closed his eyes, but kept them fixed on the Pleiades, and on late-setting boots, and on the bear, which men also call the wain, and which turns round and round where it is, facing Orion, and alone never dipping into the stream of Oceanus, for Calypso had told him to keep this to his left. Days 7 and 10 did he sail over the sea, and on the 18th the dim outlines of the mountains on the nearest part of the Phaeacian coast appeared, rising like a shield on the horizon. But King Neptune, who was returning from the Ethiopians, caught sight of Ulysses a long way off from the mountains of the Solini. He could see him sailing upon the sea, and it made him very angry. And so he wagged his head to himself. He wagged his head and muttered to himself, saying, "Good heavens! So the gods have been changed in their minds about Ulysses while I was away in Ethiopia, and now he is close to the land of the Phaeacians, where it is decreed that he shall escape from the calamities that have befallen him. Still, he shall have plenty of hardship yet before he is done with it." Thereon, he gathered his clouds together, grasped his trident, stirred it round in the sea, and roused the rage of every wind that blows till earth, sea, and sky were hidden in cloud, and night sprang forth out of the heavens. Winds from east, south, north, and west fell upon him all at the same time, and a tremendous sea got up, so that Ulysses's heart began to fail him. "Alas," he said to himself in his dismay, "whatever will become of me? I am afraid Calypso was right when she said I should have trouble by sea before I got back home. It is all coming true. How black is Jove, making heaven with his clouds, and what a sea the winds are raising from every quarter at once. I am now safe to perish. Blessed and thrice blessed were those Danans who fell before Troy in the cause of the son Atreus. Would that I had been killed on the day when the Trojans were pressing me so sorely about the dead body of Achilles, for then I should have a due burial, and the Achaeans would have honored my name. But now it seems that I shall come to a most pitiable end. As he spoke, a sea broke over him with such terrific fury that the raft reeled again, and he was carried overboard a long way off. He let go of the helm, and the force of the hurricane was so great that it broke the mast halfway up, and both sail and yard went over into the sea. For a long time, Ulysses was under water, and it was all he could do to rise to the surface again, for the clothes Calypso had given him weighed him down. But at last, he got his head above the water and spat out the bitter brine that was running down his face in streams. In spite of all this, however, he did not lose sight of his raft, but swam as fast as he could towards it, got hold of it, and climbed on board again so as to escape drowning. The sea took the raft and tossed it about as autumn winds whirl thistledown round and round upon a road. It was as though the south, north, east, and west winds were all playing battledore and shuttlecock with it at once. When he was in this plight, Ino, daughter of Cadmus, called Leucothea, saw him. She had formerly been a mere mortal, but had been since raised to the rank of a marine goddess. Seeing in what great distress Ulysses now was, she had compassion upon him, and, rising like a seagull from the waves, took her seat upon the raft. "My poor good man," said she, "why is Neptune so furiously angry with you? He is giving you a great deal of trouble, but for all his bluster, he will not kill you. You seem to be a sensible person. Do then as I bid you. Strip, leave your raft to drive before the wind, and swim to the Phaeacian coast where better luck awaits you. And here, take my veil and put it round your chest. It is enchanted, and you can come to no harm so long as you wear it. As soon as you touch land, take it off, throw it back as far as you can into the sea, and then go away again." With these words, she took off her veil and gave it him. Then she dived down like a seagull and vanished beneath the dark blue waters. But Ulysses did not know what to think. "Alas," he said to himself in his dismay, "this is only some one or other of the gods who is luring me to ruin by advising me to quit my raft. At any rate, I will not do so at present, for the land where she said I should be, quit of all troubles, seemed to be still a good way off." Yeah, they should have, Kate. "I know what I will do. I am sure it will be best. No matter what happens, I will stick to the raft as long as her timbers hold together. But when the sea breaks her up, I will swim for it. I do not see how I can do any better than this." While he was thus in two minds, Neptune, sent a terrible great wave that seemed to rear itself above his head till it broke right over the raft, which then went to pieces as though it were a heap of dried chaff tossed about by a whirlwind. Ulysses got astride of one plank and rode upon it as if he were on horseback. He then took off the clothes Calypso had given him, bound Ino's veil under his arms, and plunged to the sea, meaning to swim on to shore. King Neptune watched him as he did so, and wagged his head, muttering to himself and saying, "There now, swim up and down as best you can till you fall in with well-to-do people. I do not think you will be able to say that I have let you off too lightly." On this, he lashed his horses and drove to Agae, where his palace is. But Minerva resolved to help Ulysses, so she bound the ways of all the winds except one, and made them lie quite still. But she roused a good stiff breeze from the north that should lay the waters till Ulysses reached the land of the Phaeacians, where he would be safe. Thereon, he floated about for 2 nights and 2 days in the water, with the heavy swell on the sea and death staring him in the face. But when the 3rd day broke, the wind fell, and there was a dead calm, without so much as a breath of air stirring. As he rose on the swell, he looked eagerly ahead. As he rose on the swell, he looked eagerly ahead and could see land quite near. Then, as children rejoice when their dear father begins to get better after having for a long time borne sore afflictions sent him by some angry spirit, but the gods deliver him from evil, so was Ulysses thankful when he again saw land and trees, and swam on with all his strength, that he might once more set foot upon dry ground. When, however, he got within earshot, he began to hear the surf thundering up against the rocks, for the swell still broke against them with a terrific roar. Everything was enveloped in spray. There were no harbors where a ship might ride, or shelter of any kind, but only headlands, low-lying rocks, and mountain tops. Ulysses' heart now began to fail him, and he said despairingly to himself, "Alas, Jove has let me see land after swimming so far that I had given up all hope, but I can find no landing place, for the coast is rocky and surf-beaten. The rocks are smooth and rise sheer from the sea, with deep water close under them, so that I cannot climb out for want of foothold. I am afraid some great wave will lift me off my legs and dash me against the rocks as I leave the water, which would give me a sorry landing. If, on the other hand, I swim further in search of some shelving beach or harbor, a hurricane may carry me out to sea again sorely against my will, or heaven may send some great monster of the deep to attack me, for Amphitrite breeds many such, and I know that Neptune is very angry with me." While he was thus in 2 minds, a wave caught him and took him with such force against the rocks that he would have been smashed and torn to pieces if Minerva had not shown him what to do. He caught hold of the rock with both hands and clung to it, groaning with pain till the wave retired, so he was saved that time. But presently the wave came on again and carried him back with it far into the sea, tearing his hands as the suckers of a polypus are torn when one plucks it from its bed, and the stones come up along with it. Even so for the rocks tear the skin from his strong hands, and then the waves drew him deep down under the water. Here, poor Ulysses would have certainly perished, even in spite of his own destiny, if Minerva had not helped him to keep his wits about him. He swam seaward, beyond reach of the surf that was beating against the land, and at the same time, he kept looking toward the shore to see if he could find some haven or a spit that should take the waves aslant. By and by, he swam on and came to the mouth of a river, and here he thought would be the best place, for there were no rocks, and it afforded shelter from the wind. He felt there was a current, and so he prayed inwardly and said, "Hear me, O king, whoever you may be, and save me from the anger of the sea god Neptune, for I approach you prayerfully. Anyone who has lost his way has at all times a claim even upon the gods, wherefore in my distress I draw near to your stream and cling to the knees of your riverhood. Have mercy upon me, O king, for I declare myself your suppliant." Then the god stayed his stream and stilled the waves, making all calm before him and bringing him safely into the mouth of the river. What's up, Core? Neptune and Poseidon in the same story. Neptune is Poseidon. Or at least, the Roman way of saying it. Yeah. We've had no Poseidon. I mentioned a polypus earlier, but that's just an octopus. Let's see, sea god Neptune. No. There is no mention of Poseidon here. Another lord stuffed Neptune as Poseidon's son. That makes sense. Then the god stayed his stream and stilled the waves, making all calm before him and bringing him safely into the mouth of the river. Here at last, Ulysses' knees and strong hands failed him, for the sea had completely broken him. His body was all swollen, and his mouth and nostrils ran down like a river with seawater, so that he could neither breathe nor speak, and lay swooning from sheer exhaustion. Presently, when he had got his breath and came to himself again, he took off the scarf that Ino had given him and threw it back into the salt stream of the river, whereon Ino received it into her hands from the wave that bore it down towards her. Then he left the river, laid himself down among the rushes, and kissed the bounteous earth. "Alas," he cried to himself in his dismay, "whatever will become of me? And how is it all to end? If I stay here upon the riverbed through the long watches of the night, I am so exhausted that the bitter cold and damp may make an end of me. For towards sunrise there will be a keen wind blowing from off the river. If, on the other hand, I climb the hillside, find shelter in the woods, and sleep in some thicket, I may escape the cold and have a good night's rest, but some savage beast may take advantage of me and devour me." In the end, he deemed it best to take to the woods. and he found one upon some high ground, not far from the water. There he crept beneath two shoots of olive that grew from a single stalk, the one an ungrafted sucker, while the other had been grafted. No wind, however squally, could break through the cover they afforded, nor could the sun's rays pierce them, nor the rain get through them, so closely did they grow into one another. Ulysses crept under these and began to make himself a bed to lie on, for there was a great litter of dead leaves lying about, enough to make a covering for 2 or 3 men, even in hard winter weather. He was glad enough to see this, so he laid himself down and heaped the leaves all round him. Then, as one who lives alone in the country, far from any neighbor, hides a brand as fire seed in the ashes to save himself from having to get a light elsewhere, even so did Ulysses cover himself up with leaves, and Minerva shed a sweet sleep upon his eyes, closed his eyelids, and made him lose all memories of his sorrows. And thus ends Book 5. Well, that was fun. Good progress. Well, everyone, I hope you're all having a wonderful night tonight. Ooh. We've gone through 2 books, 2 chapters. All in all, very good progress. Show the clips now. That's for the Discord, not here. Not while we have people resting. But everyone, I do think that is where I'm going to go ahead and end for tonight. And luckily, I can see, let's see, we have Wampus streaming and their Vtubers streaming. I think we'll go ahead and check out Jay. As we'll move from one guy to another, right? So everyone, rest easy, and I hope the reading helped you get some rest and relaxation. And I will see you all next time. Again, thank you Mofuku for the raid. Thank you everyone for the follows. Wampus, thank you for shouting me out. And have a wonderful night, everyone. As always, it's been a pleasure. See you next time.